This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not meant for substitution or replacement of professional medical or health advice. This podcast may contain explicit language, taboo topic, controversial ideas, and triggering points of view. So we invite you to respect what is being shared, even if you don't agree. If you resonate with anything that's being shared in today's show, please feel free to apply it into your own life. If not, we invite you to let it go. Welcome to the Mastering Life, Relationships and Intimacy podcast with Lucia Gabriela, a sacred space which means it's free of judgment, where we come together to learn and explore how to awaken, unleash, and unlock our inner master self. These podcasts feature experts in topics of life, relationships, and intimacy. In life, we will explore topics on health, wellness, nutrition, fitness, yoga, and spirituality. In relationship, we will explore topics on self-love, being single, dating, online dating, romantic partnership, marriage, uncoupling, divorce, parenting, polyamory, family and work relationship, and money. In intimacy, we will explore topics on tantra, sacred sexuality, eros, conscious adult entertainment, kink, and BDSM. I am your host, Lucia Gabriela, a relationship and intimacy coach, integrative somatic therapist, tantra facilitator, a speaker, co-author, and founder at Nuna Holistic Retreat Center in Sarasota, Florida, where we offer integrated therapies for individuals and couples to awaken, reignite, and embrace their true power. To learn more about any of my transformational coaching and somatic experiences, immersion weekends, and couples retreat, go to www.luciagabriela.com. And today's conversation is about going all out for love is never a bad thing with Arturo Santos Jr. Arturo is a creative and hard-working writer born just outside of New Orleans. He's the author of the book All Out for Love, a true story of breakup, quest, and redemption. Arturo is a believer in growth and development, enjoys traveling and exploring new cultures. Additionally, he likes sport and is very close to his family. His writings include poems, fiction, and non-fiction works. So welcome back to another amazing episode. And today we're so excited to have Arturo Santos with the whole conversation around going all out for love is never a bad thing. I'm really excited about to hear about his new book and also about these pitfalls and poisons of the modern dating culture. It's a really yummy conversation for everyone out there who is dating, who also want to put themselves out there, but they have these fears. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today, Arturo. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So grateful, first of all, for the invitation and happy to be here to talk to everybody a little bit about it. And so I'll just dive right in. A little bit about myself. I'm kind of originally from, New Orleans. I currently live in Florida. And a few years ago, I was really kind of blessed in a really natural way to have, taken what was a journal in which I captured basically, my own story of how I was dating this particular girl and then broke it off with her and then went through this kind of awakening or this kind of, shuffling of my life and realizing, wait a second, I messed up. I need to go back and win her back. Mm-hmm. So my book, All Out for Love, is a true story of how I did this over-the-top quest to win back the girl that I had lost. And I think in that journey, I learned so much. And I think that maybe more so than ever, it kind of applies to, what I have observed in the dating world and in the dating culture, and kind of it's just as prevalent as ever and stuff like that. So I hope to dive in with it, dive into it with you.
Awesome. So I am so excited to have the conversations when it comes to dating because even myself, like I'm in a dating platform, and it's really interesting to put yourself out there, and the fear that comes from people, like to put yourself authentically out there, like what to say, what not to say, and all these things. So it's really, really fascinating. It's like dating 10 years ago online, or 20 years ago online, was maybe 15 years ago online, was totally different. Dating today online is such a different conversation. It feels like we always have to be updated to what's actually happening online. So me dating 7 years ago to 8 years ago in New York is totally different online to we're dating here in Florida. It's such a different culture, different evolution.
Exactly. There's so many elements to it, right? And I think that's what kind of throws some people off. So and ultimately even one's mindset into going into it varies from person to person, right? But what I kind of caution and I wonder and I'm concerned with sometimes is how basically, whether it's the dating apps as well as the dating platforms and just the variety of different avenues that one can find in the dating world, right? My concern is that, let's say people go into it with a pretty decent, pretty positive, attitude. But my concern becomes when these varieties of ways to connect to people, whether it's Bumble or Plenty of Fish or Tinder or Coffee Meets Bagel or the online platforms like Match or eHarmony, when those things start to basically highlight or speed up or even sometimes encourage some negative behaviors, that's where I'm so concerned, right? So what I mean by and so when one goes into those and has the variety of different avenues, I'm just concerned with people saying, oh, okay, so I can be selfish in this process by saying, oh, if someone doesn't meet my exact criteria or my exact qualifications, then that person's not good enough. So hopefully we can kind of dig into like what those different negative spaces of people's mindsets are and how they kind of just feed ego and ultimately lead to bad results and stuff, because it's so bad, I think, in the long run.
So before we dive into the mindset, you were mentioning that in your journey you learned a couple of interesting things. What would be the one thing that you feel that you learned the most?
Yeah, so, and I guess kind of connected to this, the negative part is the positive, right? So what I took away from it is, I had to be more selfless, right? So contrary to trying to just seek out a result that ultimately benefits me, I learned, I think, in that journey of trying to go all out, but more so even now in the relationships since then, of how beneficial it is to think in terms of empathy and, sharing or consideration or just putting myself in the other person's shoes and not necessarily starting from what I desire, but rather, considering the other person. And I think that both in the journey that I went through that I speak about in the book and more so in the years since then, it's been such a big, point of growth for me is that huge consideration. And I think it's made all the difference in my relationship since, is that very, very important point of not necessarily just saying, oh, what do I want? What do I want? That person's not good enough for me because of X, Y, or Z, or, they don't match up with me because of this, that, or the other. It's like, wait a second, let me first start with, how can I be of help? How can I be of service? How can I be caring? How can I be kind? And then in turn, positive things happen. So.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things that I like to share with our community, especially even when we work with clients, is that when you start looking at yourself from the energetic angle, energetic perspective, your energy influences the other person. So if you're going to come with this armor around and just be like, with this very high expectation and attachment to high expectations, and you don't give yourself permission to just be totally vulnerable in the aspect of like your heart is open, your mind is open, And then you can influence the other person that you're dating. You give yourself permission to be authentic, which influence other people to be authentic with themselves. So I love what you mentioned is the aspect of being selfless. And when we really tap into that, we invite others to do the same for themselves.
Exactly. And so like now what I see and in speaking with friends and family members and different people that are especially, in the age range of, anywhere from like early mid 20s to late 30s or mid 40s or something like that. What I see is the tendency to gravitate to the opposite of that, right? So because, you can literally be on a date with someone and halfway through the date, if someone steps aside or whatever, maybe use the bathroom or whatever, you're already firing up your dating app, looking at the next possible match because it's not going quite right on the first date. Or someone, might be seeing someone, for half a month or whatever, and they're like, oh no, I'm already finding frustrating things. This isn't going to work out. This isn't for me. Let me go ahead and look for somebody else. Or, at the very first beginning signs of any type of differences of opinion. It doesn't even have to be big things, maybe just inconveniences or miscommunications or little nuances that result from possibly just not knowing the person well enough. Everybody wants to run for the hills and say, oh, that's it. It's not going to work out. This person's not for me. The heck with them or whatever. But honestly, if it begins from that, if it's all stemming from that, then that in my opinion sometimes shows way too much self-centeredness, way too much selfishness, not enough open-mindedness, not enough awareness, because sometimes if we're just so quick to try to just find another potential match, then it's coming from a place of like the ego or other places that might not necessarily be as positive or conducive to growth and to more development and stuff, to try and get to know somebody. And ultimately, I mean, even just a date in particular isn't necessarily the most fun thing and an easy thing to do. We're on a date and it's like you got to show who you are and how you do it, and it's a different person and the rules and this and that. So even that in and of itself can be complicated enough. So
Yeah.
It's tough though. It's tough for sure.
It's definitely when we come from a place of that understanding that whoever we meet in our life, it could be a date, a relationship of 1 hour to the relationship of 10, 20, 30 years, is such a beautiful gift that we have as human beings to be able to do the deepest inner work that we must do. And when we were mentioning the aspect of like, oh, we find little things here and there, it's actually a reflection of how we actually going within ourselves and how much work are we allowing ourselves to do for ourselves to take care of the part of ourselves that we are misjudging, the part of ourselves that we're not treating nice, the part of ourselves that are not really feeling love and compassion. I know, so it's like looking for those like those illusions and pick on those things and try to look for the next person, go next. It can also show, like you were mentioning, like in my perspective, it kind of shows a little of a lack of self-work. Because the moment that you become in tune with your own self-work, you come from a place of compassion and empathy, understanding in your depth that the other person is also going in their own journey of growth and evolution, and you become a little more patient of what they actually is going with them. But I would like to say too, like, and I had to be clear with our community too, because I'm always speaking on this. It's great to create a journey where we can meet somebody and we can understand and grow together, but it's really important also to see the red flags when it comes to a person who's toxic. And sometimes that, I would like to invite there, you have to become really aware when you tap into somebody who are already in a very toxic environment, because you're not going to go in any relationship, even on dating, to try to fix anyone. So I would like everybody to be conscious in this conversation today that what we're sharing here today are going to be great tools with the individuals that you feel that, they're going to enhance your life. They're going to help you to enhance your life and your journey. And at the same time, you become aware that you're not going on date with people who are toxic. What would you like to say on that,
Oh, so
Arturo?
true. And exactly, and kind of what you're saying. Like, I'd like to speak on the point of when you kind of, I guess, sharpen, right, your awareness, and you're able to sit there and be in those situations, and you hear that voice or those kind of nagging little, icicles that kind of go into your head about, oh no, this person's not right, or because of this, that, and the other. You can, because we're not on autopilot. We're not just machines that are just kind of going automatically. So if those things happen, one can sit there, slow yourself down, and stop, and then literally just stop those kinds of thoughts, because you're right. Like, we can control, what we think. We can control how we feel. We can control who we choose and how we spend time, and our actions, most importantly. And that's kind of where, I would encourage everyone to sit there and have a more positive outlook on things. Be open. Even if you go out and you're in a good place and everything, and you meet someone, and for whatever reason, maybe it doesn't necessarily match up, but what can you take away from that experience to make it a positive thing? And more importantly, open yourself to the opportunity to really get to know people from not just like a superficial level of just a casual conversation, but really get to understand what their story is. There's a beautiful quote that says, if you hear someone's story, there's not any person in the world that you can't love. And I think that, there's so much beautiful things about every single person in this entire planet, right? We're not all here for just no reason, I don't think. And so, when you really get to that, and you really actually come from that standpoint, then there's nothing you can't take away from some type of an exchange with someone. And that eliminates, right? That eliminates that selfishness, that type of ego-centered attitude that results in behavior that are not necessarily conducive to growth, right? Because you're closed off if you sit there and say, that person's not a good fit for me, that person's not a good fit for me for this or that or the other and everything. So you open yourself up to actually learning, to growing, to developing yourself with these different interactions with the different people. And ultimately, little by little, I think, go into the things that are conducive to a more healthy, wonderful relationship that might even eventually involve in love, which is empathy, consideration, sharing, caring, kindness, trust, honesty, and so much more. And ultimately, those more stronger positive aspects, I think, resemble so many of the things that occur in nature that occur over large periods of time, right? Like, you see a beautiful lake and a river or a mountain that form. These are things that takes, massive amounts of time. You see forests and how they develop and the diversity that they have, whether it's the insects or the animals in them or the plant life or whatever. It takes time, right? Similarly, if you truly seek something of worth and of value and ultimately love, it's something that takes time, for it to develop. And when you go into it with the right awareness and the right attitude, it's bound to happen for sure, even in this dating world.
Yeah, so let's talk about the mindset that you were so excited to talk about when it comes to the new age of, in the dating world. Like, what are the mindset? What do you feel? Yeah, let's talk about that, because there's so many mindsets that are really not productive at all.
Right, for sure. So one thing, it's that whole instant gratification that I think is such a powerful force, I think, currently, right? I mean, you have a plethora of different dating sites, and every single one of them, right? You've got the phone, and you can just swipe. But ultimately, it's very superficial, not based in the most valued things that you can have in life, right? And so, the mindset that someone has to fit in a particular category or of a particular style or a particular height or weight, or maybe it's particular values of this or that, or maybe it's religion, maybe it's where they're from, maybe it's the language that they speak, or whatever. We want to box people in to these little categories and say, okay, they fit this, but they don't fit this. Okay, no good. But love cannot possibly flourish, in my opinion, in that type of mechanical, constructed, contrived way to sit there and consider things. Why not instead, open oneself up to say, I'm not sure exactly what those boxes are supposed to be, or more importantly, I can actually accept someone and love someone even if they don't, match up exactly what my entire mindset is, and some people have said, oh, love happens when you're least looking, for it. And I think that kind of touches on those type of ideas, that in other words, we can't control, how things flow. So you can't control how things happen, and it's all it happens organically and in a way that's beyond sometimes even what we can comprehend. But if you go into it with a positive attitude and you think about it in terms of developing yourself and where are you as a person, are you open, are you healthy in regards to emotional, physically, and spiritually, mentally, able to share with another person. What can you give? Not necessarily what can you just get. Instead of just saying, oh, this person, what are they going to do for me? Match. No, they don't match, blah, blah, blah. Come to it from a different standpoint. It counters some of those things, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the things about dating, online dating, is it's really not personal at all. And it's like, and you get to the point that you end up being in so many platforms, and because there's not real connection, so you keep looking, like, I'm like exploring right now. I'm like testing everything right now, like all the dating apps and actually even a website that are not for the common person, because as I'm like polysensual, I even go to dating site for like polysensual people, and you also find the weird stuff. That's like, that's not polysensual, that's called cheating. That's like, and even on dating and on websites where there's like mutual arrangement, and there's like become now a transaction, and it's like, okay, that's a different story. But man, I interview and I talk to people and I have conversations that really, it blows my mind away. It's like, whoa, this is so, like, what actually is happening, what really is happening behind the app and the scenes, like, because I'm a polysensual, and like I'm a teacher in these realms, and also tantra practitioner, facilitator. My experience, this is a disclaimer, my experience is totally different than anyone out there. Because from my experience, I am not having fun, even though I'm just exploring, because it is painful. I don't find that real connections, and I'm a kind of like person that I'm all about real connection, real intimacy, not the super sugar coating things that, like, Arturo was saying, like the boxes. One of the biggest things I did when I went out creating my profiles was I have my group, my team, like my the people that I always like, my friends, right? And
Sure.
But they're more than my friends. They're like in my right hand side and everything.
Like your family, basically.
Like my like I throw ideas out there and feedback, and they're my accountability partners. Put it this way, like the people around me, they always keep me accountable and make sure that boom. And when I was creating these dating app profiles, I was trying to create a profile that was going to be likable for people to see what I was going to attract. I knew it was not going to be the way to go. Because I would not attract the people that I really want to hang out and have a conversation with.
Right.
Because when you read my bio profile, it's profound. It's like very philosophical, the way that I am, who I am. So because of that, that's kind of like a filter for me. And it brings people and men who are really interested to have real conversations.
Right.
And it filters out the individuals that they just like that, what I call the window shopping, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a huge thing. Like, that's a great thing to share. Two things, right? One that you said is you've got to try to be as authentic to yourself as possible. Because who are we kidding? You are who you are, and you're going to be you, and you only have you to basically showcase. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think that sometimes there is that hesitancy or maybe even fear for one to actually represent who he or she really is and actually put yourself who you truly are out there, because they say, oh, maybe I should be more generic or more this or that or like somebody else or this or that, and I'm going to include this and that and stuff like that. And even like filters, for example, think about it. Few people nowadays actually just put their real picture on there. It's like, oh, it's a picture, but it's like a different filter, and then with the lighting right and this and that. But we're beautiful enough as we are. We are wonderful enough as we are in real living color and stuff. And so, putting the true self on there is, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, because you like have more warm color right now because you're in video, you have warm color. I'm like more pale. I'm like, yeah, I had to look for the freaking good lighting over here. What are you talking about? Lighting is everything. You know about this. Where have you been in the past 50 years?
And that's the thing about it, it's like, where do we draw a line? But it's so true, and ultimately too, and that's the second thing, right? Like you put your authentic stuff on there, and no doubt there will be people that are literally, like you say, just window shopping, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a frivolous activity where they're just trying to see, like, maybe superficial connection, but they would never be able to really connect and penetrate and actually really, connect with you, for example, on a deeper level, because you don't seek that. You have put forth, the deeper conversation that you enjoy, the deeper ideas and ideologies, and the deeper view on the world that you really want to enjoy and have a partner to speak of. And so, and how do you penetrate that through the technology of all of it? That's one of the riddles, I think, of modern dating, is that, how do you connect to somebody real and authentic and open and aware and of the like mind, but through these technological things that are not necessarily indicative of like the organic and the feelings and the emotion. It's just like computer screens and digital pixels and everything, and it's so different. But I think if you approach it from the standpoint of a real wholehearted, awareness within, and from, goodness and the things that will ultimately lead to growth and development of yourself, and how do you give and share your own love or your own journey or all the kindnesses that you have in your heart, then I think you can never go wrong as long as you stay true to those things, Hence, why even, without giving the whole story away of my book of All Out for Love, it doesn't necessarily end in a way that one would hope a love story ends, right? And so that taught me that even though you can, quote unquote, go all out for love and do everything that you want to try to achieve a result, it might not necessarily end up in the way that you originally intended. But just because it doesn't mean that it's not a valuable lesson or something good that can come out of it. Hence, like the dating world, even if you go into it, with good things, might not always turn out that way. But if you always stay true to the reason why you've done them, then you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Authenticity to me is like one of the greatest, key, especially when it comes to dating. Authenticity comes from a place of like really getting to know yourself and give yourself full permission to be you. There's no authenticity when you don't know much about yourself and you just think that you're just one plane, where actually when you're multi-plane. That's not a level of authenticity that really is gonna radiate. More when it comes to like attracting an amazing, incredible partner into your life or anything in your life. So I definitely love to encourage people to really get to know themselves really, really, really well. All aspects of themselves, the light and the darkness, the spicy part, the sour part, whatever, rock the boat.
Right.
Really, really get to know yourself very, very well, so you can really say, okay, this is my authentic self, because I know myself very well, and I will be able to attract somebody that it would dance with me in this journey of relationship. Awesome. So we're talking about instant gratification, and I totally am with you. It's one of those mindset that it's not just we find it in our relationship when it comes to dating, but we find it in all aspects of our relationship, even when we're married or when we, or we in a, what do you call it, 10, 20, 30, 40 years marriage, that, that mindset of instant gratification in our relationship, I believe that is a toxic mindset that we should do some scrubbing and get rid of it. Yeah. Not get rid of it, but to just transcend it, and create it, destroy it.
Right, yeah, because imagine, like, when one goes to build a home, right, you want to have a solid foundation in that house, and then on top of that build, strong walls, on all sides, whether it's brick or wood or whatever, cement or anything that you're using, and then build a roof on top of that. You don't want to just rush towards, putting something together, and then the strong wind comes by and knocks it all down, or rain comes and then all of a sudden it leaks into the house, right? There is something to be said about, time and like small steps in a concerted effort towards something coming together in a much more comprehensive way than just like splash. Like if you're not, like you said, if you're not aware of who you are, where you are in a healthy place, so to speak, as yourself, and then you're throwing yourself out there hoping to try to achieve some type of connection with somebody, it's going to be a lot more taking versus giving. Mm-hmm. Just, give me love, fill the voids that I have, fill the emptiness that I have, fill the needs that I have, give me. And then when that doesn't happen, instantly we're frustrated because, we're not getting it fast enough. But ultimately it's kind of like faulty thinking, because it should stem from, wait a second, why am I looking for this person to ultimately bridge my gaps, give me these holes that I have, when truly it should be things that I've completed within myself, mm-hmm. and then I just want to give. Because you can technically love, you can give, whether it's time or, small gestures, or whether it's physical, affection or words that you splash over to someone. You can give all those things. You can love someone without necessarily even, quote unquote, being loved back. To love doesn't mean that you actually have to receive something in return, right? Mm-hmm. You can technically love another person and start getting it and be fine with it. It doesn't have to come with like the constraint of saying, wait a second, I'm going to love you, but you have to love me back. And then, like you said, but when you truly are in that space, that you're able to love, like you're radiating. You use that beautiful word, which is true. You radiate that. It comes from you, and it's like this energy that you emit. Then others can detect it as well. It's like it's like a magnet or something, because it comes from you. Doesn't require anyone else to kind of contribute to it. You're already in that space where you're already giving that. You're already sending that out into the universe. And so it becomes so easy then to then ultimately you do match with other people, and you do, connect with real significance, because it's already of you. It's already something that you're evoking. It's already something that you're emitting. And and then the other person that is a part of that is just adding to that, versus just, making it possible because of that person. And that's a big thing. And instant gratification can never lead us to that. It can never lead us to a wholehearted connection, I think, because it's rooted in the very things, like we're just mentioning, of that lack. If you're looking for something instantly, then there's something missing that you're trying to fill some cases. So mm-hmm. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, definitely. Beautiful. So what's the other mindset that you find that is one of the ones that is not healthy when we go into dating?
Yeah, so like how we categorize these are different, but I think sometimes like dating multiple people all at once, that might not necessarily be a good practice. Because then, you're comparing this to the other, and you're like, oh, well, this person, is able to accept my date, on Thursday, then I'll cancel with this other person on Thursday because I like this one more, and blah, blah, blah. It's like you're trading baseball cards or something, which is very superficial, which, ultimately is selfish. So I think selfishness is a big one. Sometimes I think weakness. And what I mean by that is our own internal weakness. So in other words, thinking those negative thoughts within our own heads about, oh, this person's this or this person's that, but that stems from our own, individual decisions inside our heads and our hearts that we can control. And, whether it's slow down through meditating or prayer or whatever, or exercise, or building yourself up through your own, interest or whatever, so some weakness in regards to some negative, thoughts and behaviors is another one. Just sometimes even going way back into like letting what's happened in our past, whether it's through family stuff or past relationships, kind of like continue to poison us and play out in the current, dating world. That's another big one and stuff, which, it's a whole nother, conversation, I guess, too. But there can be things that we can do to kind of slow down those little, leaking of ideas or thoughts or sometimes bad habits from the past into our current dating world and then playing out, into the dating world right now. So, there's a lot, and a lot of it's, kind of ego-centered, which is unfortunate, but it's a thing. It's out there.
So let's get clear with the aspect of dating, because from research, we kind of like everybody have their own opinion of what dating is. So not to confuse the audience, even myself. When we talk about dating, I have interviewed a couple of individuals that have shared that it is good to have conversations with people, get to know people. You go on a date. That's what we call it. We go on a date, and not to get the one, but to have conversation, to get to know other people, to put yourself available out, to be yourself and have, interesting conversations out there. And so what I think I heard from your side is it's a lot more of the aspect of commitment, an aspect when it comes to dating, like commit yourself to date one person at a time. But that is like a more, that's step two, we put it into step. Like that's more into once you have, once you like the person, you want to continue with that person, you just commit to it. Unless you're a poly person, that's a different story, because polyamory, polysensual, in the poly world, you have agreement, you have a whole bunch of stuff that you have to go through, be able in a relationship to be able to even put yourself out there in a dating world, dating other people, be poly. So poly talk is totally different, other conversation for another day. But when it comes to those individuals who don't consider themselves poly, that they just decide to have one partner in their relationship, in their life, when you're talking about dating, I just want to clarify, it was more about that commitment to be committed. Once you have a great communication with one person, and you feel that there's this attraction and there's this connection, and you really feel like you want to spend time with them, you commit yourself to it, and just be committed to it.
Right. Yeah. And so I think, just to make sure that, we're clear with everybody. So, because I think that even when, let's say before even the commitment part becomes a thing, right? But there's a mindset, and I don't know if you even want to call it like values, but an outlook really that you want to go into it, right? So and you kind of mentioned that to the listeners and the viewers about you want to make sure you're not with anybody or spend time with somebody that's poisonous or that's bad. Mm-hmm. And what I think you mean by that, and I'll add to that, I guess, is the fact that, look, when you're trying to meet a variety of different people or whatever before the commitment stage, if you notice that anyone is basically harmful or hurtful to you, and you can tell by the way that he or she might be approaching the dating, if it's something that ultimately brings insecurities in you or fears in you or harmful things to you, whether it's physical or emotional or even words that they say to you that might be hurtful or whatever, then you know that that's not somebody that you want to spend time with. So, but nonetheless, you can gather something from that particular interaction that I would hope would be positive. Maybe it's, the fact, oh, wow, that person, needs love in their life, or that person, needs, or she or he needs, a friend or something, and wow, they're missing that. And even the fact that you picked up on that it's a sign that your awareness is growing because you were able to detect that and everything.
And
So
let me just add that to that. It's not even what you find that they are missing, but also what are the boundaries. I usually find like what are the boundaries that you're missing within yourself. That to me, that's the key ingredient when you have somebody that is toxic that coming to you, because we're all gonna be attracted. And I always find like working with individuals in recovering, emotional and sexual trauma, it's important that to realize, okay, I'm attracting these individuals, I'm attracting these people that like they're very violent, they're very toxic. Okay, what within me I am not having strong boundaries about yet, where I'm feeling like not powerful enough yet, that I'm keeping attracting because this is the universe telling me, okay, something here that needs to be worked out, and if you're not getting it, we're gonna help you to figure it out.
Exactly. That's a great point. That's a great point. That's a wonderful, help that, there's resources and stuff like that to get. So then beyond that, right? So then if you go into a situation where, okay, this is the one person and stuff like that I'm going to try to concentrate on and everything, then it's kind of like, I guess, maybe like another increase in the level of patience and tolerance you want to have. Because then let's say you kind of weaved your way out of meeting a variety of people, and there's one person that you kind of want to focus on. Well, then here's a not a big shock to everyone. Here's a guaranteed statement that even if that person that you do want to spend time with, that you focus on, well, guess what? Like, you're going to have adversity with that person. You're going to have challenges with that person, and it's not going to be easy because that's just life. That's the one guarantee that things are going to always be challenging, because independent of that person doing things right and you doing things right, life happens, right? Maybe tomorrow it's a flat tire, maybe the other day's career challenges, maybe it's illness, or maybe somebody had a bad day because their supervisor jumped all over them or whatever. So things always happen, but it's about how do you go through those challenges with empathy and consideration, patience, and slowing yourself down even more so than possibly in the other field when you were still trying to just date and try to get to know different people. But now if you're with someone, then you have to say to yourself, okay, how do I ratchet up my awareness? How do I ratchet up my patience? How do I continue to sit there and love and serve and trust and honor the other person in a way that goes beyond just my own particular wants or needs and stuff like that, which continues to increase the growth, which is always a positive thing.
Yeah. So when you were sharing that, it was clicking while you were talking about the aspect of dating one individual at a time, and it was just coming together in the way that many times in the dating world we see people that individuals that they start dating so many because they want to fulfill something within themselves that they hadn't fulfilled, and they try to date this one. Oh, I didn't like this one. Well, like because they still have a coming from a place of lack. So what I think I'm hearing from you is like when you start dating, like come from a place of feeling full, whole. And feeling whole and full is not gonna make you be wanting to be looking and chasing and going after or dating people because you feel empty. But if you choose coming from a place of wholeness to date this person and you're still happy about it, dating this person, and this person is wonderful and they have great qualities, and somebody else it has another qualities, and it's great, but coming from a place of wholeness, that's the poly world though.
I can yeah, exactly, and
that's a totally different dynamic of relationship, because even in the poly community I'm like exploring and being in so many poly groups and like poly experiences. I come from a place where I come from a place of wholeness, and I have my primary partner, and who is amazing, incredible, and there's no other, right? It's like,
right.
And then I have these we give ourselves this freedom to have this energetic exploration. I'm a polysensual, not a polysexual, so we have great boundaries, great we have literally grounding rules and boundaries in a relationship. What's allowed, what's not allowed. To come from a place of wholeness, not from a place of like, I'm gonna do this because this. No, So there's
Right.
negotiation. The level of communication and to be in a poly world had to be. It's scary for so many people because the level of authenticity and vulnerability that you had to be, and the level of addressing your desires and your fears and your frustrations is very scary for so many. So that's why even in the poly world, not many people able to make it because the level of communication is totally, it's crystal clear, or you are or you are not.
Right.
So when we come into this conversation, it's like you were mentioning the aspect of the values. Like, what are the values that you have in your relationship? Like, where you're coming from? Where you're coming from a place of wholeness, and if you don't know yourself and you don't have your values and your standards and the level of communication where you can share everything and not be afraid of being yourself, you know, you can't go out there, even in a poly world, you cannot go out there from a place of lack and trying to have multiple partners because this partner does not fulfill this need and the other one does. That's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Well, and I think that you touched on something really important, and I think regardless, so yeah, in how one wants to define what he or she wants, right, out of a relationship, and they can so you can define relationship as whatever way you want, and you can define the person that you want to be in a relationship with, or the people that you want to be in a relationship with, however you want. And then what comes into play, like you said, and what I kind of mentioned about continuing levels of growth in regards to, how you're, extra patient and this and that and the other, is rooted in communication,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, as you get to learn about another person and as they get to learn about you, there are absolutely going to be moments where things don't match up in regards to, how you'd want to go about doing something, or more importantly, how you'd want to react about something, right? Or how the other person reacts to you about something. And because that's learning, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't know the other person. Think about it. All the past of whether it's family life, cultural differences, geographical differences, language differences, food habits, likes, dislikes, hobbies. All those things are things that you're learning about, right, with another person. Now, where I think some of this like instant gratification stuff and the selfishness stuff and the self-centered stuff and the ego, and quick fixes and this or that comes into play and basically adds to the problem of developing patience and communicating with certain things is that the minute that we have these kinds of situations in which we might get a little frustrated or a little angry or a little upset or literally just a miscommunication. Like literally you just don't quite get what the other person meant by something or why they did something or what's happening or whatever. It's like, oh, that's it. I quit. I leave.
Mm-hmm.
I disregard. They're just not for me, or we're not a good fit, right? Or or we want different things. You hear those things, and there's just like just little taglines that constantly come up. But rather, you got to. I would hope that people can get to the bottom of actually, if it's somebody you care about, and if it's somebody you love, and you're in a good place, and you got to understand that it's just about learning about the other person. Do the work, right, and actually make the investment in that human being that has. You wouldn't have, gotten to that place of wanting to be more with that person in a, committed relationship or whatever it is that you define it, if not for something that is there underneath. So dig into it by simply asking, like, what did you mean by that? Hey, I don't quite understand, why that happened. Can you explain it to me? Like, hey, I want to, learn a little bit about, why you did that. Can you help me understand you a little bit better? There's so many things but do the work. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what happens is that when you do, and on the opposite end of that, on the other side of doing that work and communicating and working through it, you deepen the connection with the person, like on a much deeper level than what just some kind of like instant gratification might lead you to. And ultimately, me personally, that's kind of what I, have as a desire in my life, like a deeper, more widespread, uh, I guess, more all-encompassing relationship with someone in which I really deepen that love through understanding and empathy and
Mm-hmm.
communication. but people have to do the work, like you said. Even in a poly relationship or whatever, you have to communicate to really understand. Hey, this is where I'm at. This is where you're at with, and stuff.
Yes, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you have. It can be,
Exactly.
you could be the boss and you have employees. You can be a leader.
Yeah.
You can be a teacher, a student. It doesn't matter what kind of communication it is, because uh, when we don't communicate properly, and we don't take the time and be conscious to make sure that our communication was understood the way that we think that we would desire to be understood, if we give little holes of miscommunication, we're going to have a miscommunication aspect of it.
Yeah,
So,
and yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, you can stare. We can have 30 people, you, myself, and 20 other people inside of a room,
yeah.
and we could all be staring at a painting, or we can all be staring at a math problem on the board. There are going to be 30 different possible thoughts, lines of thinking, backgrounds that go into staring at that one thing. So imagine that that's the case. So imagine in a given situation as we play out through life, all the more reason to sit there and really get to understand somebody, really get to learn somebody. But it all comes from unselfishness, right? It comes
Yeah.
from it comes from a place of not just looking at it through my own eyes and through my own heart, but rather I want to see things through your heart. I want to understand things through your mind. I want to know more about you, which comes from unselfishness, openness, trust, empathy, love.
Another thing I feel like I have learned in this was the biggest one, that it was very present in the dating, in the online dating, coming back into the online dating. Or you can apply it anywhere in your life, because this is applicable
Yeah.
everywhere. Trust me.
But it's most fun in the dating world, probably.
Yeah, it is assumption.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like assumption. It's like I have the conversation with the individual, and I'm like, where you made that assumption from? Like, honestly, like,
Yeah.
correct, like, hello, I
Right.
don't know, but one of the, things for me in my amazing community, that if you're listening through video or to the podcast, audio, as an individual, um, communication is my biggest thing. That was like, it turns me on. When I have great communication, it's like, oh my God, delicious and yummy. My energy, you can even feel it, like, oh, yeah,
But the best dessert.
oh my gosh, there's nothing better than that.
Better or worse than chocolate? You love it better than
With strawberry, yummy,
Yeah.
yummy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I have this individual, he texting me online, and he used words that I thought that he was Italian or Portuguese, because of the cutting word. And I'm like, and I'm replying Italian, like, io non parlo italiano.
Yeah, I don't speak Italian. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's like, come back, and like, what do you mean? You don't speak Spanish? I'm like, that's not fucking Spanish. I write, speak Spanish. And he made a correction of my grammar. I'm like,
Yeah.
my fucking phone is not a Spanish setting, so get over it.
Yeah.
I
It's
could tell that this person was really driving into toxicity, because I was like, hey, like, I am not giving you reason for you to offend me this way. If
yeah.
I made, it's not my fault I made an assumption that you speak Italian or Portuguese and I was speaking another language,
Right.
because
Right.
you not proper way of communicating in writing.
Exactly. And think about it. Like, what's crazy is that, with technology, it's like we stunted communication, right? You just said it. Imagine nowadays some of these connections, whether through any of the dating apps or on websites, perhaps they begin in email, perhaps they begin in text, right? Well, what possibly can help us truly know what context or what mindset or the inflection of the voice or lack thereof, in a text versus real life, right?
Yeah.
So the mechanisms by which we want to create these organic and fulfilling and wonderful and loving connections begins in such a rudimentary, technologically based way. It's counterintuitive. But then the second thing is, like you said, about assumptions, right? That's literally those moments where we're like filling in those gaps of the lack of communication by inserting our own idea or mindsets or prejudices or, intellects or education or whatever into a space that we don't have the information for, right? So it's like we throw ourselves into that space and jump to something or jump to a conclusion, arrive at a particular point without necessarily even having the map of where that point was supposed to be or how we were supposed to arrive at, because the other person was supposed to give us those clues to get there, and yet we didn't have them, but still arrived at a point. And then we wonder, why is there an issue with that? But it's all in the communication and the lack thereof,
Yes, and especially in the online world, the more, and not even just online dating, but even doing business in the online
Sure.
world.
Sure.
I really invite people to take their time to be fully present when they are doing any kind of response communication. I know that, I also fall into, I'm responding an email, text, and I'm like working, but I'm like fully present. I'm like, make sure, right? Oh, I have my child sometimes. I'm like, please just give me the extra 2 minutes to be done with it, because I cannot be here and I cannot be there. So as an entrepreneur mom, single mom, I have to like navigate my child while sometimes I'm doing work, right? And be like, hey, honey. Yeah, it's like, honey, I'm like, give me 2 minutes, 5 minute time me, and she literally timed me. I'm like, that mom is like, okay,
Right.
I have 2 minutes to answer this right now. Go for it.
And that's kind of like giving the time, like fully be vested and be able to listen, which kind of I think lends itself to what kind of where we started, which is if you're trying to get to let's say if someone's out there and they're trying to find a marriage, or they're trying to get married, right? And they're trying to date to eventually find a partner to get married. Or you're out there and maybe you're just trying to get into a committed relationship, or you're trying to add, to the group of people that you hang out with, whatever that may be. But, then think enough of the person that you're trying to get to know and arrive at this goal, right? Whether it's marriage or just a committed relationship or just another friend, by valuing them enough to give them your true attention and stuff like that, whether it's through, physical time, whether it's through the conversation over the phone, which probably never happens anymore, right? But anyway, whatever that may be, really listen. So that way you can,
Yes.
you can possibly uncover something that you've wanted to and stuff. So that's why I encourage everybody to try to come from a place of giving, of sharing, of understanding, of love, of trust, of hard work. Like, do the work. There's something to that. Do the work. Not enough of us want to do the work, I think.
Is do the work. Like, if you do the writing, do the writing. Like, if you're gonna communicate with somebody, it could be online, through text, through the phone. I personally come from a place that I want to make sure that I'm read myself like 3 or 4 times before I even press key,
Right.
send.
Right.
And I had to make sure that I understood, I understood what I said, and make sure that, hey, I'm not leaving any kind of like gaps over here. And really, it takes time. You have to do the work. You cannot just be like, we cannot afford. And this goes in all type of relationship. It doesn't matter if you just start dating, online dating, exploring the world, or you're in a very deep committed relationship, or you can be even in relationship with your employees, with your, business world. We cannot afford to give ourselves excuses to not communicate properly. We just cannot. Yeah. That's not an excuse that I welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely high five. Like I completely agree. And and when you do the work, that's why like when I did this book and I learned my lesson, and actually like I said, it's not necessarily a happy ending, but the great thing that I walk away with is that, and that's why I say you can never go wrong by going all out for love.
Yeah.
In other words, if you did the work and you do your effort and you do what's right, you come from a good place, not that you need gaps filled, whatever. But you literally are just radiating the goodness that you have, and you're just a wonderful person. And ultimately, if at the end of the day, that particular relationship or connection or whatever it is that you're seeking doesn't necessarily work out, but you can sleep good at night, rest your head, and feel great because you did your best, you tried your hardest, and you followed ultimately what you felt came from your heart, which if you're in a good spot and everything, will never come from a bad place, and it'll feel good because at the end of the day you can say, oh, you know what, but I tried, and then you feel good about it, and you gave what you had to give, and whatever happens is totally fine. It's as the universe decrees it, and so you don't have regrets, and you don't say, oh, but I could have done that, oh, I should have done that, oh, I should have listened more. If somebody disappoints you, and pick up the phone and say, sorry, hey, how can I learn better about what you meant by that?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's mad or whatever, be patient when they're mad. If someone has an upsetting day, then help listen to what it is that upset them and get it out of them, literally exercise that from them by listening, and be such a good person and such a wonderful place that you just radiate it, and you just naturally just giving and sharing and being trustworthy and being helpful and everything, and your life is just in such a good place that you don't need anybody to literally fill something for you. You are that. You're full. You're full, and then you're just
full. Yeah. And before we wrap it up, I want to just share that part when you're talking about the aspect of communication, give them a call, something's happening. It's happening at all levels. Even if you have been doing this work for so long, and be conscious and really pay attention to everything you say and how you communicate. Sometimes you also have those moments that, I don't know what happened. So,
right.
And you have to give yourself permission to say, okay, I personally give myself, I cannot go more than an hour if I came to realize that I communicated in a way that it was not appropriate, and I have to correct it right away. I had to address it right away. And very quick short story. I had I had a communication. We were talking with one of my friends, and we were sharing, and he was sharing things about his girlfriend relationship and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, giving feedback and things, blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, I felt that the energy changed because I said something, but it was coming from, a conversation that we were having. But I was in my thread, in my own train of thought, and he was already in another train of thought. So I was like, So when his train and my train came together, they crashed and they collapsed, and I can feel the energy was like, boom.
Right.
And he retrieved, right? And he just didn't want to press it because he comes from a point of view that he said well, if that hurts me, I don't want to address it because I don't want to give energy to it. And that's what he, after we communicated, he explained that because he's like, well, I don't want to address it at the moment. I don't want to give energy to it because I don't want it to happen. Anyway, and I'm rolling myself because it did happen. So anyway, when I was driving home, literally 15 minutes, I felt so uncomfortable. I'm the kind of person that's so somatic. I'm so into my body that if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. So I'm like, something's wrong about this. What happened? And I started putting all my thoughts together, and his train and my train. I'm like, oh, he thought that I was predicting this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a no. This is a new relationship. I cannot predict that shit yet. Right. And I'm like, I cannot predict a breakup in when he's excited about sharing his relationship. And I'm like, no, I never meant that. Maybe the train and the subconscious level.
Did it happen though?
Eventually? It did happen though, but I didn't. But I don't know if I predicted it or not. But it came together in the conversation, and he really got upset, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not." So I had to address it, and I said to him clearly, I said, "I love you with all my heart, and I would never wish anything to you like this ever. Even if I predicted, I keep myself quiet. I would never do this because this is not my train to run. This is your train." But
did he have those? I'm just curious because it relates. Did he have those thoughts in his own heart and mind?
We were having a conversation, and I don't know. I kind of have a sense that I was in my train because we're in a poly world, so there were some rules or boundaries that they were imposed in that part of the relationship. And over here, I was like, well, it just doesn't feel right to me. But I'm like, whatever. I'm like talking about this. So it was like a very interesting conversation. But the point is, like, I'm clear with him. Said, I love you with all my heart, and you are a great friend to me. I would never wish anything like this to you ever. I would never even speak it, even if I think it. You know, like, or even if I think it, I would not give myself permission to think it. I would be like, no. Right. And I said, if you ever find yourself in the situation that you have to, something is not communicated right, I give you the permission to call me on my bullshit. Something that I said, it hurts you feeling your emotion, you believe or anything, or you felt that energy. I cannot personally give myself permission to be in a relationship with anyone, even in a friendship, where I can feel separated from you, even when I'm driving home. Right. I cannot. You know, right. I have you connected to me. We are connected. I love you. I adore you. But if I can feel that drift, it's just painful. It's like, it's not a friendship anymore. Sure. That's how relationships start breaking up. And right. I had to be like honest and be like, you have full radical permission to call my bullshit. Like, say, Lucia, I fucking don't give you permission to say that shit. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. I was like, okay, yes, I don't have permission to say whatever I said, right? Right. Because even if, when it happens is that when you give permission to others to say, like, yeah, call me on my bullshit, or something you don't like, just say it, because it opens up the door to actually dive deeper in the conversation. I'm like, what actually happened here? What was the miscommunication? Right. But I tell you, many people don't want to go there because they don't want to have confrontations.
Well, and that's the thing. It's exactly, and like, it comes from an assumption, perhaps, that it would lead to a confrontation. Yes. But rather, it's just, you see, I think we're equipped in our bodies, or in our I think our bodies and our emotions ultimately give us little hints for opportunities of growth and development or deepening of relationships or whatever. And so but sometimes we mistake a signal for something when it's something else. So, like, for him, for example, maybe, and in just this example, you brought it up, maybe, like you said, maybe he thinks it's a signal when he feels that, that like something that he can't quite put his finger on. He's like, oh, if I dive deeper, it leads to conflict. But rather, if he dives deeper, conflict might not be the road that it actually leads to. It's actually a deepening of the relationship that it will lead to. Which, deepening of the relationship, yeah, maybe I don't know what he would be sharing or whatever, but maybe there's tears, or maybe there's pain, or maybe there's something that would come up as a part of the deepening. But once he gets past that, there's pain and the stuff that comes up as a result of the conversation that would have ensued. But beyond that, there's the growth in his relationship with you as a friend that would result from it and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what we had, because once I was driving home, it was like, I grabbed the phone right away. This doesn't feel right. Do you have a moment to talk? He made the time for that. We addressed it, 30 minutes in the conversation. It was explain it, he explained it, we talk. It was good. Okay, great.
Exactly, so right?
Good.
And it's just, and think about it, like communicating and also, deepening of relationships, or learning and really learning. See, we think of like learning as just in terms of the classroom or a type of skill or whatever. But I'm talking about life learning, like literally deepening learning of interpersonal relationships. It's so much bigger and more complex. It's not something we practice growing up, and it's not something that we're really taught correctly, because we learn from those that raise us, and that doesn't necessarily translate into a terrific example sometimes or whatever. So, in that learning and stuff, which is, really, really vast, you're able to really, dig in and grow relationships a lot more by getting in there and really kind of exploring with the other person, whether it's a friend or a supervisor at work or a family member or a loved one or a partner or whatever that is or whatever for you and stuff. But that's awesome. It sounds like you guys did that.
Yes, and so to wrap it up quick, it's amazing. The conversation has been amazing, I definitely feel like the aspect of communication when it comes to online dating, it has to be something that we can look for within ourselves, because I feel like as a relationship coach is about not much, my focus is not too much about like, oh, how I'm going to create great relationship with everybody outside of them. But actually my core work is how are you going to create a great relationship with yourself, and from yourself, with all aspects of you, all your archetype, all your egos, all your shadows, all your energies, all you. So when you have this present moment where something's painful, ooh, you go deeper.
Exactly. There's something beyond. Yeah, you like doing the work, you see?
I love it, man. I love it. But anyway, it has been an incredible conversation. I know we covered so many great, amazing, incredible tools for our audience to have great insight, aha moment, and practical things that they can bring into their life and be like, let me think about this. So, how our community can find you, Arturo?
Thank you so much. So, if anybody wants to track me down, they can find me on Twitter at Boludo18. That's BOLUDO18 USA. So that's Boludo18 USA on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm Boludo18, and then my email address is, of course, aesjrwriter@gmail.com, and then go check out my book if you can and stuff to kind of get a non-traditional love story, but that nonetheless has a lot of positives for anyone to basically walk away with. And I thank you so very much, Lucia, for having me on here.
You're welcome. So the book and name show it to audience who are watching, and the ones that are listening in the audio is All Out for Love. That's the name of the book.
All Out for Love, and it's available on Amazon, or they can contact me, and I'd be happy to send them, signed copies if they'd like to purchase or get one from me. And they can get it on Amazon and Kindle, and or have it print on demand directly to them.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day today.
All right. Pleasure. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on today's show. And if you have enjoyed it, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave it an outstanding review. Until next time.